wing. Dick Nixon, for whom I worked, got the nomination in '68 by running up the center. And I think that's what the Republican Party needs. It needs to center itself, pulling together the ideas that Donald Trump had, which people accept, and repudiating the ideas that Donald Trump has suggested to the American people about election fraud. Yeah. Then at least you have a genuine party reflecting real values and real direction. But the Republican Party will never be free of the curse of Donald Trump unless the Republican Party itself liberates itself from that curse.
Yes, well, your faith, as always, John, is stalwart, and I wish I could hold the same faith in my heart as you do. But it seems
Sing
like
the Pirates of Penzance. You'll feel much better.
I will feel much.
Donald Trump. Maybe we should do one on Trump, the Pirate of Penance.
The Pirate of Penance. I will sing the Pirate of Penance for Donald Trump if he gives penance for what he's done. That is also something that I'm not holding my breath for. Let me mention also, if you ever get a chance to talk to Richard Hassan, he is an excellent expert on the subject of cults and cult-like behavior. I've had a couple of emailings back and forth with him. I don't think I've actually had him on this program, but perhaps you've had conversations with him in the past. But he has written a couple of books, and he is really an excellent source of information and experience when it comes to not only cults in general, but applying the behavior of the current Republican Party to a cult-like structure, which really it has become in large part since the ascendancy of Donald Trump.
No, I agree with you, and I look forward to your doing that interview.
Yes, Richard Hassan, and we'll connect you with him at some point as well. He's a really sharp guy. Now, something that I wanted to deal with that is in my heart, because I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you live in San Francisco, that beautiful city, and we hear so much about the death spiral and the death loop, and there's so much going wrong with the city of San Francisco. I believe, to paraphrase Mark Twain, that the reports of the death of San Francisco have been greatly exaggerated. But certainly there is an issue with many commercial spaces in downtown San Francisco, especially, being unsold, and there also being an enormous housing crisis in San Francisco and throughout the Bay Area. And I read this morning that the White House has opened a $45 billion pool of federal funds to convert offices into homes. And I wonder to myself, because it's a thought that I've had before, whether that could be applied to the city of San Francisco. Certainly, every time I come through the Waldo Tunnel, I guess it's now the Robin Williams Tunnel, exactly, the one with rainbows painted in the same rainbow color that he wore his suspenders on Mork and Mindy. And I see on the horizon what I did not see before, which is the Salesforce Tower and the massive cigar-like shape on the horizon of San Francisco. I think to myself, the information that I have is that at current rate, it's only about 35% filled, only about 35% rented out. Could that and other spaces in the city of San Francisco be converted to housing so that people don't have to pay the exorbitant sums that are necessary to live in this beautiful city, and thereby reducing moving, homelessness, all manner of social ills that are necessary? I'm very curious to get your thoughts on this new federal program that could help perhaps to make that happen.
Well, then you have to ask another question, and that is, who can afford to move into a housing unit in San Francisco? There is no such thing as low-cost housing. It is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
When you consider it carefully. Look, this is a better idea than the mayor, who suggested a giant soccer stadium be built where a lot of these buildings are. We kicked that around, if you'll pardon a bad pun. Bad idea. But look, I'm in favor of housing. And remember, whatever can be converted one way can be converted another way. Right. Because one day, the office buildings will fill up in San Francisco. I have every confidence that will happen. People want to work in offices, but there is a real housing problem. Whenever I hear a candidate for mayor talk about affordable housing, I really think it's an oxymoron. I know the housing market here in San Francisco, and I can assure you there is no such thing as affordable housing. You want to go out in the Sunset District? You want to get a house which is 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and maybe a downstairs and a garage and a backyard. You're talking $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, this is pie in the sky. So I have my doubts about it. I also have to tell you, I've looked into the homeless problem. Most people who are homeless on the streets do not want to live in housing. They feel safer on the streets because they are attacked by other people who are homeless. There's a huge drug problem. There are many issues. So I understand the altruistic view that this housing could be converted, or these offices could be converted to housing. But I also want to bear in mind with people that it could then be reconverted back into offices when the need arises. It is not housing that is the problem. It's unemployment, getting people to work, finding jobs for people, keeping the streets clean. You know, there are a whole host of things that have to happen for an idea like that to be implemented.
And I might add being paid appropriately as well, given like what the actual market is. Is
that sort of like the salary you're paying me?
Oh, yeah, and the salary that I'm paying myself for that matter. If you talk about a whole host of issues, why not think of the hosts? Why not think of the podcast and the radio hosts who have housing needs of their own? But my basic thought on this is yes, it can be reconverted. So let's take the opportunity now. If there are opportunities so that people can be housed, great, and we can talk about reconverting it later if other situations happen.
People are we're moving into the housing.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the homeless people who basically also need medical attention? I live a few blocks from a tent colony. I walk through that. My son just moved out of an apartment south of Market. It's an incredible problem. And then the question is, what is market rate? How much do you pay for an apartment? Because remember, it's not free. So that means you have to have people who are employed, who have minimal income, unless it's Section 8 housing.
Right.
And is the federal government talking about Section 8? Because even that's a problem now.
Well, yeah, I think they're talking about, as I understand it, at any rate from the story, it's increasing the general pool of available housing in places where the supply is low, and I would think that would certainly apply to San Francisco. If you can afford it. But I mean, I don't necessarily think you're talking about the homeless people per se. I think you're talking, although many of the homeless people do. I mean, certainly throughout the Bay Area, do have jobs. They're working jobs, and they're working from places. Maybe not in San Francisco so much, while living in RVs and trailers and places like that. I think some of these people are not entirely without means, but it seems that the means necessary to get a place in the Bay Area, whether it's San Francisco or Oakland or what have you, is just very, very difficult, and we have to
don't even think about buying something.
Oh yeah, I'm not even going there.
Or $2 million.
Yeah, I know.
So I will see. I want to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I want to see what the real numbers are. I want to see what they're talking about in terms of the people who would move in. And remember, San Francisco has severe problems, but this is a city where people want to live.
Yes.
And so I have every confidence that we will survive this moment in time.
As long as none of the places built in the future in San Francisco are the leaning Millennium Tower sort of situations where people are off kilter, both emotionally and physically. It is just a shame to see that. Fortunately, I think that's only a matter of a few inches now. But let's get our housing situation straight, if we could, in the city of San Francisco.
You certainly have a remarkable slant on this situation.
We're getting so into the woods, with housing situations. I brought it up, and I think it's an important issue. But we're our puns are are getting into a very interesting situation. John Rothman, thank you so much, as always, for indulging both my political proclivities and my singing ability. I greatly appreciate it, and I greatly appreciate the thought that you put in every weekday, Monday through Friday, into Around the Political World with John Rothman, which everyone listening to us now should give an ear to, check out. Please download on any podcast platform, because it is there thanks to you and the wonderful Gogo Zoger, who is your producer. John,
let me just point out, it's only about 10 minutes.
Yes.
Every day. I record every morning.
Yes.
Which means that you can get a 10-minute dose. And then, of course, we want response. But everybody should know I'm so grateful to Beowulf for allowing me the opportunity to be with him. And now I know that if you move back to San Francisco and you have to sing for your supper, it will be Gilbert and Sullivan all the way.
If I have to sing for my supper in order to get back to the San Francisco Bay Area, I will happily do it. Although Southern Oregon is a wonderful part of the world. But listen to Around the Political World with John Rothman. You will not have to put up with my singing, and you will hear very incisive and concise commentary from Mr. Rothman. John, thank you so much. Monday. A pleasure speaking with you, as always.
Thank you, and I'll see you next Monday.
We'll go into that story on housing a little bit more deeply when we come back. This is Facepalm America. I'm Beowulf Rockland. Facepalm America, I'm Beowulf Rockland. We were just talking about a number of issues with John Rothman of Around the Political World with John Rothman, and the last of them was affordable housing. Now, John says there really is no such thing as affordable housing in the San Francisco Bay Area. Currently that's true. But I think it is not something that we can ignore, and I'm very fascinated by this program that the White House has put forward. Let me read you about it in a little bit more depth. Here's a story from MarketWatch.com. Taking aim at the nation's housing crisis, the White House kicked off a multi-agency push on Friday to help real estate developers convert more office buildings emptied by the pandemic into affordable housing. The initiative aims to harness $35 billion in low-cost loans already available through the Transportation Department to fund housing developments near transit hubs, folding the initiative into the Biden administration's clean energy push. So it's a positive not only in terms of housing, putting roofs over people's heads, but also helping the environment, making sure people have access to public transportation, which is a better option wherever it's available to individual cars. It also opens up additional funding sources and tax incentives and offers a new guide to 20 federal programs that developers can tap and that offers technical assistance in what can be tricky and expensive conversions. I tell you, I was telling this to John Rothman, when I come from Marin over the Golden Gate Bridge, and I see the skyline of San Francisco, and I see the Salesforce Tower, which is a giant cigar-shaped building, which is now the tallest building in the city of San Francisco. And I know that only about a third of that building currently is rented out. I say to myself, there are people who need housing. There are people who can't afford, who commute from long distances, for whom an opportunity to live close to where they work is not available, or live anywhere close to, or anywhere in the Bay Area at all. Why not make places like that available for rental as apartments? It would solve a couple of different situations. It's just a matter of zoning. It's certainly right next to public transportation near BART and Muni in San Francisco. And this can be done in cities all over the country. Because in a world that is post-COVID, given the fact that we know folks can work remotely and that it can be feasible and that you don't have to rent as much in-person space as you did, and I don't think that's going to change moving forward. People always want to be in offices a certain amount, But I don't think that demand is as much, especially when companies realize how much they can save. When they don't have to rent out space, especially in a very